What if everything you thought you knew about the universe was a lie? What if the one person you trusted most wasn't who they seemed? This is the story of Damian Stone, a man who believed humanity's rise was their own doing. But what if a force beyond comprehension has always controlled their fate? The truth is closer than you think, and it's in the hands of a stranger who holds the key to your fate. Stay with us. This is just the beginning. Damian Stone, an ex-soldier turned rogue, thought he had escaped the horrors of war. But when an alien force threatens his world, he realizes that his fight is far from over. Trapped aboard an alien ship, shackled and alone, Damian refuses to be broken by his captors. His eyes burn with defiance, his heart still filled with the fire of humanity's spirit. But there's something about her, Zara. The way she commands the space around her. The way she looks at him, as if she could see right through him. She's different from the others, a leader among her people, and yet something about him causes a shift in her composure. Zara had once been the epitome of command. Unyielding, cold and calculating, as a high-ranking officer of her race, she had watched entire planets fall beneath her rule, their civilizations crushed without hesitation or mercy. To her, humans, like all other species, were nothing more than fleeting distractions. Insignificant creatures, easily manipulated and disposed of. They were weak, bound by fragile emotions and short lifespans, unworthy of the Valorians' true power. But Damian was different. From the moment she had laid eyes on him, she knew he was unlike any human she had ever encountered. His resistance wasn't typical. It wasn't merely physical, like the others who fought out of desperation. No, there was something more, a fire within him, burning with an intensity that she could not ignore. He didn't cower in the face of her authority. He met her gaze with an unwavering determination, as if her power had no hold over him, and that intrigued her. She stood before him now, regal and beautiful in her alien form. Her posture was flawless, her movements precise, the essence of control. Her presence filled the room, commanding attention, casting a shadow over the sterile surroundings. And yet, despite the power she radiated, as her eyes locked with his, something in her began to shift. The steady resolve that had always defined her began to waver. For years, she had held onto the belief that humans were weak, insignificant, powerless in the grand scale of the universe. It had been so simple to dismiss them, to see them as nothing more than pawns. But now, standing before this one human, Damian, she was forced to confront something that unsettled her. His presence, his defiance, his very existence began to chip away at the certainty she had so long relied upon. This human, this man, was making her question everything. Days passed, and with each interaction, Zara found herself more intrigued by Damian. At first it was a fleeting thought, a momentary curiosity. But as the days dragged on, that curiosity deepened into something she couldn't quite define. It wasn't just his defiance, though that alone would have been enough to earn her attention. No, there was something more. Something in the way he looked at her, the way he refused to back down, even when the odds were stacked against him. His strength was not physical alone. It was the strength of his spirit, his refusal to submit, even in the face of unimaginable power. Zara's race had long been programmed to believe in their superiority, to see humans as beneath them. The Valorians were the peak of evolution, and the idea of yielding to a lesser species was unthinkable. It was an ingrained belief, one that she had never questioned, until now. With each defiant word Damian spoke, with each unflinching gaze he sent her way, something within her began to shift. It wasn't just about the power he showed. It was something deeper, something more visceral, stirring emotions in her that she had long buried. She had always been in control, commanding respect, commanding obedience, but Damian's defiance was different. It made her wonder if, perhaps, there was more to this human than she had been taught to believe. And Damian? He saw it. He saw the subtle changes in her, the moments when the hardness in her eyes would soften, when her mask of authority would crack, just for an instant. He saw the flicker of doubt that would pass across her face when she looked at him. It was as if for a brief moment he could see past her alien exterior to the person beneath. He could sense her struggle, the internal conflict that had begun to take root within her. It made him feel something he hadn't expected: compassion. He wasn't sure what it meant, but he knew this. Zara, the commander of a race that had brought entire planets to their knees, was no longer the unshakable force she had once been. She was vulnerable in a way that both confused and fascinated him. And it made him wonder, what was she really afraid of? What was it about him that had caused this change? Each interaction between them, each moment of silent tension, drew them closer, whether either of them wanted to admit it or not. One night, the ship's harsh lights dimmed, casting long shadows across the cold metallic walls. The hum of the engine softened, as if the very air around them had shifted. In the quiet, Zara stood before Damian alone. She had always maintained control, always held her distance. Yet now, something was different. She was no longer the imposing figure of authority. She was conflicted, vulnerable in a way she had never been before. For the first time, her composure faltered. She had kept her emotions in check, hidden behind the iron mask of duty. But standing before this human who had refused to bend, she could no longer deny what had grown between them. The tension between them had reached a point where it could no longer be ignored. The defiance in his eyes, the fire in his spirit, had wormed its way under her skin, and now she was forced to confront it. She spoke, her voice barely a whisper, laced with something unfamiliar. "I don't understand you, human. Why do you keep fighting? Why not just submit like the others?" Damian met her gaze, his expression calm but unwavering. For a moment they stood in silence, the weight of her question hanging between them. His answer was simple, raw, and full of the truth she had never allowed herself to see. Because submission isn't an option. We fight, not because we're stronger, but because we refuse to be crushed. Zara felt his words cut through her, like a blade slipping past her armor. For the first time she was speechless. She had always seen strength as something tangible, power that could be measured. But Damian's strength wasn't in his muscles or tactics. It was in his soul, in the unyielding will to fight, even when it seemed like there was no hope. She stepped closer, unable to stop herself. Something inside her stirred, a dangerous, unfamiliar desire. She could feel the heat rising between them, the magnetic pull that had been there all along, buried under the surface. She had always viewed humans as weak, yet here he was, standing in front of her, with a strength that made her question everything she had believed. She had underestimated him, thinking his resistance was merely a result of desperation. But now she knew better. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about living, about choosing to fight for something bigger than himself. In that moment, Zara realized something she had never considered before. This human was far more powerful than she had ever imagined. As she drew closer, her breath catching, Zara knew that this strange connection between them could no longer be ignored. She was torn between the duty she had been raised to uphold and the undeniable pull that Damian had over her. Her control was slipping, and she didn't know how to stop it. The vulnerability she had hidden for so long was laid bare, and it terrified her. But it also thrilled her, and for the first time she allowed herself to feel the dangerous desire stirring within her. A desire she knew she could never suppress. Zara stood before Damian, her heart pounding in her chest as she realized that the moment she had feared had finally come. She had always been in control, the unshakable force who never allowed herself to be swayed by anything or anyone. Her entire life had been about maintaining that control, manipulating, dominating, bending others to her will. But now, standing here with Damian, something was different. For the first time, she felt like she was losing that control, and she couldn't bring herself to stop it. The connection between them had grown undeniable. It was there in every glance, every word spoken, every breath they shared. Each interaction with him had built something deeper than either of them had anticipated. And no matter how much Zara tried to fight it, she couldn't escape what was happening between them. She stared at him, her chest tightening with an unfamiliar feeling. She had never been so vulnerable, so exposed. I've always had control, but now, you've made me question everything. You belong to me, human, not just in body, but in spirit. There's no going back. Vien didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped closer, his breath shallow, his heart racing in his chest. The moment he closed the distance between them, something in him clicked. He saw it in her eyes, the same fire that burned within him, the same undeniable connection. For a brief second he was lost in her gaze, the alien woman who had captured his heart in ways he could not have imagined. Then, without thinking, his voice broke through the silence. Maybe I do belong to you, but I won't let that define who we are. We're more than just this war between our worlds. We're more than just enemies. The tension between them reached its peak, and in that instant, everything else faded away. The war, the galaxy, their races, their duties, none of it mattered anymore. It was just the two of them. One final step. And then, without hesitation, they came together. The kiss was electric. It was everything they had fought against, everything they had struggled to deny. It was passionate, desperate, and full of a longing neither of them could control. Their lips met with a force that seemed to consume them both, and in that moment, the universe disappeared. There was no ship, no war, no alien race or human resistance. There was only the heat between them, the undeniable connection that had grown from defiance, vulnerability, and a shared desire to feel something real. The kiss broke, leaving them both breathless, their hearts racing in sync. Zara stood there, her chest rising and falling rapidly, her body trembling with the aftermath of what had just happened. She had chosen him, and she knew the consequences would be dire. Her people would never accept this, never allow it. Her duty had always been to her race, to her mission, to her people's dominance. But now, standing before Damian, she understood something she had never truly considered before. In that fleeting moment, she had made the only choice that truly mattered. Damian reached out, his hand brushing against hers, and for a second, time seemed to stand still. No more words were needed. No more explanations, no more excuses. They had both made their choice, and nothing could take it back. They had chosen each other, against all odds, and against everything they had been taught to believe. It was a decision that would change the course of their lives, no matter the consequences. And in that moment, as their hands touched, they both understood that nothing would ever be the same again. As they stood together, facing the uncertain future, the stars outside the window of the spaceship seemed to shimmer with a promise, one that only they could understand. The vastness of the galaxy, with all its dangers, seemed distant and irrelevant in that moment. The endless expanse of space, once overwhelming and filled with uncertainty, now felt like a canvas for something greater, something that only they shared. The weight of their choices hung in the air, heavy with the knowledge that their bond had the power to shift everything. They had chosen each other against all odds in defiance of the world they knew. The consequences of their decision were yet to be seen, but neither of them cared. The war, their races, the weight of duty, all of it faded away. The only thing that mattered was the promise between them, unspoken but clear. In the end, as they stood side by side, facing whatever would come, that bond was something no one could take from them. It was a truth that nothing, no power, no empire, could ever break. It was theirs, and no matter how the universe unfolded around them, they would face it together.